Other news that's going on here, the president-elect signaling that, he could be open. He could be open to defense cuts, especially if it involves big defense contracts that are, well, by his likening, a little extreme. He did that yesterday, meeting with the respective heads of Boeing and Lockheed Martin. In the case of Boeing, on Air Force One, that it shouldn't be a $4 billion plus contract. And in the case of the F-35 fighter jet contract that Lockheed Martin is handling, that they can do better on that. Keep in mind that these were already signed, sealed, and done deals, but the president-elect kind of reminding both, not with me, they're not. So is there a bigger strategy here to rein in government excess no matter what sacred cow it addresses? We've got Kristen Soltis-Anderson, the Washington Examiner columnist. We've got Atima Omar, the Democratic strategist, and our own Charlie Gasparino. All right, Kristen, you're looking at this, and I think that he's worked on a variety of fronts here, not the least of which is saying that no government contract is a done deal unless I'm looking at it. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump knows that some of these things that he's done, whether it's the issue with Carrier, whether it's coming out and sort of going after individual companies and saying, you've got to do better for America, he knows that it's politically popular. And I think he also understands that, look, the Republican Party, we always talk about it as this three-legged stool: the social conservatives, the fiscal conservative libertarian folks, and the defense hawks, the folks that are strong on the military. And you got to be good on all of those things, but they don't always agree. And you've had defense folks who always want a bigger, stronger, more robust military, and sometimes the libertarians, the fiscal hawks, saying, wait, defense costs a lot of money, we got to make sure we balance the budget. What Trump is trying to say is, I'd like to have my cake and eat it too. Is there a way for us to do fiscally conservative things, trim the fat, cut government spending, while increasing the size of our military? So he's looking to create a deal that's sort of a win-win, and I think he knows that the politics of meeting with these CEOs is probably a good first start to send a message.
Well, it does send a message. By the way, Kristen, and you meant nothing by it, but that expression, have your cake and eat it too. If the cake is there, eat the damn thing, but that's a whole...
I want to eat these donuts you all were talking about.
No. Unfortunately, everyone can see when they're delivered here, but we'll see. I got a very hungry tech staff here, so you know how that goes. And Gaspar, I'm going to keep far away from here.
I don't do donuts.
Yeah, really? Okay, fine. Charlie, let me address a little bit of that with you here about what is going on behind the scenes and what Trump might be trying to orchestrate. I always think that, he was elected much to the chagrin of establishment on both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, as much as Republicans, and holding near and dear anything when it comes to defense. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's going to be a reality check on him very soon, and that's when, he becomes president and he has to deal with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. And I can tell you this, he does have an issue with the deficit. He wants to, listen, he just tweeted out he wants to build more nuclear weapons. So he wants to, it sounds like he wants to expand the defense budget to some degree. He also wants to do infrastructure spending massively. At least that's what he campaigned on. And he's also campaigned on big tax cuts, particularly taking the corporate tax rate down from its current very high rate. I think we're the third highest in the world, down to something like 15%. Here's what I'm getting from congressional Republicans, that they are actually discussing scaling back some of this stuff when the rubber meets the road, that he's going to have to come in and compromise, because the last thing they want, and Mitch McConnell is a deficit hawk, and by the way, so is Paul Ryan, he's going to have to compromise on the infrastructure or the tax cuts or the defense. There's just so many things he can do without blowing out the budget, creating a budget deficit, and having this gets down to bond yields, having the 10-year go up to 5% and snuffing out any recovery he might have. And that's what he's facing with congressional Republicans right now. At least that's
some
where
revolts here. Although they had it over deficits that got bigger and bigger themselves. Atima, let me ask you a little bit about what might be negotiable here. The one thing I'm hearing, I could be very wrong, although I doubt it, that maybe what they're coming up with is, we're open to everything you want to do, Mr. President, except, this is on the Republican side, the infrastructure thing. Unless you can find a way to pay for it up front, we're not going to do it, at least not this year. What do you make of that and the signal that could send, and the opportunity to work with Democrats could send?
Well, I think that for me, I'm like, what cuts? I mean, I think Kristen was right in saying that the politics of him meeting with the defense industry is a great thing. But this is a lot like, a lot of people forget that he owned professional wrestling matches. And I think in this case, he's playing definitely the hero. He's looking for like a big kind of win where he can show that he's cutting money. So Air Force One, the F-35 project is a great thing. But then, the defense industry's been around since, certainly at the size it has been since Eisenhower, and has been very smart and has managed to work with every administration. So they might give him a win and they'll cut, these specific, projects,
But
projects.
you also know sometimes that has great more than cosmetic value. I mean, it sends a signal, and I think these kind of things register in that way. You don't agree?
I think it could send an initial signal, but because the defense industry is very smart and is very patient and knows how to play their politics, they'll find ways to add the money back somewhere else in another project that they're looking for.
You sound like someone who's dealt with contractors in your own home, and you know that this is just sort of baked into the cake.
You can't do work in D.C. without coming across a few of these people and learning a thing or two.
No, I know. There is somebody who said either that's not a right or left argument there. But, Kristen, if Donald Trump has to start facing some of this reality that Charlie alluded to as well, and yet everything you want can't be done, do you think he would be of a mind to say, all right, Mitch McConnell is giving me kind of cold signals on infrastructure, I push that off?
I think what Donald Trump's going to want to do is make sure that he's got an approval rating that's high, that he goes to rallies and people are cheering for him, and that he can score periodic wins. Whether those wins are big things like a huge infrastructure deal or something little like, tweeting at a CEO and getting a meeting and something that's a little more cosmetic. So I think what will be interesting is, to the extent that Democrats have been kind of sidelined in Washington for the next at least 2 years, does Donald Trump then, if things don't go his way, make an enemy of Congress? Does he make an enemy of folks like Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan?
I mean,
if the economy's not doing well, if something goes wrong, does Donald Trump set up a no-lose scenario for himself where he points down Pennsylvania Avenue and says, it's not my fault?
The bottom line is this is a partnership right now. And, right
and
now,
I hope it stays that way.
Right now, Donald can tweet out whatever he wants and move stocks and maybe cut a deal that's just pennies on the dollar when it really comes down to it with these defense contractors.
But those pennies add up, Charlie.
But here's the thing, Neil. When it comes to January, he's going to have a chunk of change here for infrastructure, a chunk of change here for tax cuts, and whatever else he wants to do. And Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan goes, if you do all this, the budget deficit is going to balloon and it's going to destroy any economic recovery. And there will be prioritized going on.
Do any of you worry that
max.
it was a side thing that Varney just mentioned at the end of his show, that whatever he might be interested in saving, he's open to more nukes?
Now, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
kind of
just
worries
it's
me.
interesting,
wouldn't
he's
it kill you
interested in
save all this
saving.
money and get blown up,
Well, and that sort of goes to my larger point. It's sort of he's interested in saving on Air Force One and some of these things because it definitely looks good. But then he's also tweeting out hey, let's spend more money on nukes. So I'm with him tweeting about China and other things, I'm like, well, maybe he is interested in more military spending actually to begin with.
Well, maybe he just has to flesh out the nuke detail there. Maybe.
Yeah, well, just not blow up the world, but just do some nukes. Yeah, but no, my point is the other thing we have to talk about is trade. I mean, there's been stories leaking out that he wants to do tariffs and things of that nature. If you notice, as these stories are leaking out, the Dow is not hitting its 20,000 bogey that we were all talking about.
I think you're back in your hating mode, Gaspo.
I hate everybody equally.
Okay, that is true.
Except for you. Except for you, Neil. I love you, and I love your donuts.
No nukes for you.